Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead Season 2 Episode 4 video. So I wanted to talk about this episode here and talk about why I think that this episode really could be the last time that we see the nest, and I really want to talk about what's going to be happening here in Episode 4 because this is going to be a really big episode. I think a lot of characters are going to die in this episode. I think that there's going to be a lot of action and a lot of super walkers. And so before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. I will be doing my Q&A on Wednesday, so if you do want to take part in this Q&A, go and join the Discord. My server name is Appetite for the Dead. I'll leave a link down below in the description of the video. If you join the Discord, there's a Q&A channel there where I do ask for questions, and I'll be getting to that at some point today, asking for some questions, and then I'll answer the questions and record all of that on Wednesday. So I look forward to answering some of your questions, but let's get into this here. So Episode 4 shows that a final battle is going to be happening at the nest, and I say final battle because I don't think there's going to be really much of a battle going into the finale. Like, I think that at that point, there will be a lot of really cool stuff, I'm sure. Pouvoir is probably going to be after Daryl and whatnot, but I just don't think there's going to be like a final battle scene, right? Like, I think that this is actually going to be the nest battle that we were all waiting for, where we actually lose the nest, because, that happens on The Walking Dead all the time, where you lose a community and all that. So I think this is probably where we're going to lose the nest. And so I think that, a final battle here is going to be happening with super walkers, a lot of deaths, and I think Daryl and Carol reunite. So again, it's going to be a really big episode here. Episode 3 ends, and it looks like Episode 4's trailer anyway teases that, like Madame Janae, obviously she had everybody sort of in a group together, right? And those are the people that are going to be turning into super walkers. And so Carol obviously is with them. We saw in the trailer that she's obviously going to survive, and so I don't know how she survives. I don't know how she gets out of that situation, and you know what I mean, because she has to run away. So I'm really confused as to how that happens, but somehow that's going to happen. And I think that whatever's happening in terms of a story at the nest, with Losang talking with Isabel, trying to convince her to join the nest cause and all of that, and then you have Daryl, who is trapped. I think there's going to be some stuff that happens in the very beginning where they're talking about this and that, but then I basically think that Janae is going to unleash the super walkers at the nest, and then I think that's, once that first starts happening, Daryl's going to hear that, Losang's going to hear that, and then a battle basically starts at that point, right? And so super walkers are going to attack the nest. We obviously saw that a cannon blows up one of the doors, and then the super walkers are going to get inside, and then a lot of chaos is going to happen at that point there. And so a lot of deaths I do think are probably going to happen here. Like Isabel, obviously I've been talking about her death for a very long time now, honestly, going back to before the trailer, even before that, a very, very long time, just because it kind of made sense that she was going to die. Actually, I think it was around when the trailer came out is when I started to really realize that, because a lot of the scenes that we got, it just seemed like there was a point where, she wasn't really in a lot of the footage of some of the stuff that seemed to happen later on in the season. And now, after 3 episodes in, it seems like it's likely going to happen. And so I don't know how she's going to die, if it's going to be, from a super walker, if it's from Janae, but I think it's for sure going to happen here in this episode. So Isabel, I think that she potentially could die here in this episode. She's most likely going to. Losang, I feel like could die here, because I think that, if the nest is gone, Losang's probably gone, right? That's sort of my thinking there. And also, there was this one shot of I think her name was, I don't know what her name is, but it's the woman that was with Losang, and she's actually in a shot that we saw in a previous trailer after Episode 1, where again, I was talking about her then. I was like, well, she looks like this mysterious character. Is she secretly working with Janae? But no, it seems like she is with the nest. She just really believes in the nest cause, right? And so I think that's probably all it is. And again, when you go to that shot in the trailer, it really looks like she's the leader now. So I feel like Losang could potentially die, and then she becomes the leader of the nest. At that point, I'm not entirely sure. So potentially Losang. Cadron, he also could die. The only reason why I'm sort of not sure on that is because of that one shot with Daryl and Cadron, where it's during the day, it's cloudy out, and they're near the plane actually where Ash is. Ash isn't there. Maybe he's hiding in the plane, or I don't know what's going on, but Cadron is there with Daryl. And so I'm just does that happen in Episode 4? I don't think so. But again, there's a lot of shots of Cadron where it looks like he's actually, at this battle here. We don't see him yet. We don't even know he's there, but maybe that's how Carol ends up escaping from Madame Janae, is because of Cadron. He saves her, and then I don't know where Carol goes at that point, but then Cadron, again, I thought he basically died at this point. That was sort of my prediction all along, was that he was going to die in this moment, but it really looks like, unless the episode somewhat cuts to that later on, towards the second half of the episode where it's during the day, and then we see a battle taking place outside and Cadron and Daryl are there, I just don't know if he's going to die here in this episode. So I'm kind of guessing that maybe he's a death in Episode 5. Maybe he does still die this season, but he's not going to die in Episode 4 here. Daryl and Carol, obviously, they're both going to survive. Laurent, I think, is going to survive because he's not even there. Janae, I think, is going to survive because I just think that it's not the right time to kill off the characters. So, yeah, I think for sure Isabel's going to be a death. Losang, I guess, potentially, and then Codrone as well, I guess, could die in this episode, but it depends on the overall story of the episode here. I could see him still surviving, for episode 5, then maybe early on in 6 or something. I don't know. But it's going to be a really insane episode here. And again, I think we are going to lose the Nest here. And I think that if the Nest storyline is gone, Losang's probably gone at that point there. And I think that's how I see the episode playing out overall, really, is like, I see the beginning part being very calm and whatever, and then the Nest gets attacked and everyone notices. Super Walkers show up. It's a lot of crazy stuff happening. I think Daryl, obviously, we saw in the trailer, actually in the Comic-Con trailer, how he gets out of this. Kind of insane that they spoiled that, but yeah, we know how Daryl gets out. He basically, he gets let out, and then he starts killing walkers and whatnot, and then I imagine we'll eventually cut to a scene after that where he's trying to find Isabel. It's probably going to be the first thing that he does. If Janae is there, maybe Janae has Losang and Isabel, and so that's where we see Isabel's death. Maybe Janae kills Isabel in front of Daryl, and then is Carol there? Maybe Carol shows up. That's how Carol and Daryl reunite. It's going to be something like that. It's going to be a really heartbreaking scene, really crazy stuff happening with super walkers everywhere. But that's really how I see a lot of that playing out here. And I think Daryl and Carol for sure reuniting around this moment makes a lot of sense as well. I think that it's going to be very emotional. I mean, it would be weird, though, if Daryl and Carol reunited, as Isabel is dying. Like, I think that's also really weird. So it's probably not going to be how it happens. Maybe Isabel dies first, and then, I mean, that's still very weird. I don't know how they're going to do this, to be honest. Like, it almost has to happen before that, where Daryl and Carol see each other, and then they're both trying to save Isabel kind of thing. What I want from this episode is I really want it to feel like, honestly, like the big battle moment of the episode. That's sort of what I'm expecting. That's my, I guess, expectations going into the episode. I want that to happen here. And I think if it's not necessarily that, I'm going to be disappointed. And if the episode begins, obviously, with like Isabel, talking about this as some sort of monologue, then yeah, she's probably going to die. I'm going to be expecting that. I am going to see if it actually is, really sad when she goes, because I think it should be. Like, I almost feel like, in a sense, we should have gotten another, like, backstory moment with Isabel. There probably should have been much more of a focus on her, to be honest. And again, that's assuming she does die, because she hasn't really been a big part of the season, right? Like, she's been there, but she hasn't really been, a big part of the story like she was in season 1. Because in season 1, she was such a great character. And that was really one of the things that everyone talked about after season 1 was like, wow, Isabel's such a great character. Like, I can't wait to see a lot more from her. And her coming back to Alexandria and all that, like, she's going to fit right in with the main cast. Like, she's a really, really amazing character. And we'll have to see how all this is done. But I hope that it is done in a way where it's sort of, I don't know, it's hard to say, like, can Daryl stop it? Maybe he can't. Like, does he just find her as a walker? Like, what's the reveal going to be? Is she going to be turned to a super walker? That would be absolutely insane. I don't know if that's too much, probably a little bit too much, but could you imagine that if she was actually turned to a super walker in this episode and then Daryl had to kill her? I feel like that would probably be too much. I could see the writers just, if one of the writers thought of that, one of the other writers being like, no, we're not doing that. That's way too much, just for Daryl. I'm just so curious about that, like that dynamic there between Daryl, Carol, and Isabel. Like, if Isabel dies and then Carol, if she's there for the scene when Isabel dies and she sees Daryl's reaction, like, how is a lot of that gonna play out into episode 5? Are they gonna talk about that? Like, I'm thinking about the scene in the trailer at the very end where you see Daryl, he looks like he's really sad and destroyed. So at this point here, has Isabel died? And so Carol's behind him, maybe Daryl's thinking about Isabel. And so Carol walks up to him and, maybe she asks him, like, are you okay? This and that. Maybe they talk about some stuff. Like, I'm just really curious about moments like that. But finally, we're at the battle scene here. We're going to see, how a lot of this is going to end. It's not the complete end to the storyline here, but it's the beginning of the end, right? It's the beginning of what eventually is going to happen here, which is going to be the end of the Super Walker storyline, the end of Pouvoir. I mean, that's the thing too. Could Pouvoir still be a storyline going into season 3? Like, even if they go to Spain and they leave, like Pouvoir or the Nest, they still could be there. They could still be searching for Daryl, right? Like, if Daryl still has Laurent and they leave to Spain, they could still be looking for them. So maybe that's the story going into season 3 is they leave and they're still looking for Daryl. And so maybe that's how they eventually get to Spain. And then some of the story still carries over to that story, right? I don't know. I'm going to leave it here though. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. What do you think is going to happen here in episode 4? Comic-Con is in just 4 days from now. So yeah, that's going to be really exciting. I'll break down everything that we learned then. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But definitely make sure to be a subscriber if you want all my Walking Dead content like this. And I'll see you in the next one.